It's your favorite AP World History teacher here, Mr. Brock. I'm going to take a few minutes today and do a DBQ seminar with you, show you what you need to know and how to get the maximum points for the new DBQ for the 2017-2018 school year. I'm going to have a link to all the documents that I'm using today in the description down here. Also, I'll have timestamps for each of the 4 things I'm going to do today if you need to jump through it. So a quick rundown of what we're doing today is we're going to talk about the AP World History rubric and how you can get points. After that, we're going to talk about how we annotate the documents, how we write on the documents, and figure out what kind of argument that we're going to make. Number 3, I'm going to show you what has to be done for each document to make sure you get the points. And number 4, as a guy that's graded thousands and thousands of these, I can definitely tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I'm going to show you the most common mistakes. I've actually just graded about 50 of these, and this is what led me to make this video. So let's get right to it and look at our AP World History rubrics, which is here. This is verbatim from the AP people, from the gods above. And this is how you get 7 points. 7 points is a perfect score, and some of these points are a lot easier to get than others. Usually people will start with a thesis statement, but actually our essay starts with context, and context is an easy point to get that a lot of kids don't get. And basically what you can look at context for is that you're setting a stage, you're setting up, like literally putting the props out on the stage and getting it ready for the play that we're going to do, and our play is going to be our argument. So AP says what we readers have to know is that we have to describe a broader historical context relevant to the prompt. What that means is we have to talk about what's going on in the world around us at the time of our prompt. And so for how we decide if you get that point or not, it says that it has to be related to the topic, the historical events and developments that processes occur before, during, or continue after the question. The point is not awarded for merely a phrase or a reference. Basically, what they say is it needs to be at the beginning of the essay, and it needs to kind of set the stage. Okay? The next thing is another point that's really easy to get, but quite often kids don't get it, and that's the main point of this essay, which is the thesis. Your thesis is your argument, and all AP says it has to be is a historically defensible thesis or claim that establishes a line of reasoning. So, if we simply say that one of the reasons trade increased in the post-classical era is because of increased technology, and another reason is that people were encouraged to trade by their religions, then is that defensible? It is. It's historically defensible, and we get credit. It says that you can't just restate the prompt, and it says it can be at the beginning or the end. The smart thing is to put it at the beginning and then say it in a different way at the end. That way, if you mess up your words in the first thesis at the beginning of your essay, at the end you can go back and rewrite it again. And it's never smart to copy and paste your thesis statement in the beginning and then at the end as well. What we like to do in our class is do what's called a thresis. And a thresis is basically an answer to the question with 3 different answers. So if we look at the practice question we're going to use today, this is from the practice test that AP has released publicly. And the question says this: evaluate the extent to which communist movements affected women's struggle for rights in the 20th century. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these documents, and it's going to be pretty obvious that these documents are offering us answers to that question. One major thing is to evaluate the extent. Extent means how much. So we can already start to plan on how our thesis is going to look. And you can contradict yourself in your argument. You can say some documents show that maybe it was communist movements affected them greatly, while others not so much. You can say some of them affected, that communist movements affected women's struggle for rights greatly because of X and greatly because of Y. It's really up to you how you structure this. But one thing I really want you to think about is it's pretty obvious what they're wanting you to say here. They set up these questions and these 7 documents to help you construct an argument, and that's what we're going to do. Okay? So as we go on down the rubric here, we've got context and thesis. These are 2 of the 7 points that we get in the first paragraph of the paper. Okay? For the time being, I'm going to skip these 2 evidence from the document points, and this analysis and reasoning. But I am going to talk about another point that's really easy to get if you paid attention in class at all, and that's evidence beyond the documents. This is something that basically you want to, at some point in your paper, add something that's not in the document. So something we know about communist movements, something we know about the 20th century, something we know about women's rights movements. What can we throw in here that shows that we know what we're talking about? A really good place to put this is at the end, after you've restated your thesis statement. So if we look here, the actual AP rubric tells us that we need to use at least one additional piece of specific historical evidence, or SHE, S-H-E, beyond what's found in the documents relevant to an argument about the prompt. And the instruction they give us readers is it must describe the evidence and must use more than a phrase or a reference. This additional piece of evidence must be different from the evidence used to earn the point for context. So one thing you'll hear teachers say is no double dipping. So if I have really good context and that's outside info, I can't also get the point down here for evidence beyond the documents. I've got to have it set up in a way where these are 2 separate things. More than a phrase or a reference is a really big deal. My take on this is that you need to look at the essay and see what do you know about what's going on. You need to give that information and then talk about why it matters. And that's such a big deal here. So as far as our rubric goes, we've got how to get the major points. These are the points that you can kind of just knock off real quick. The first one is context, setting the stage. The second one is a thesis that answers the question. And the third one is outside information. So there we have 3 of the 7 points that you can really get in 3 sentences. The rest of the points are a little more complex, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later in the essay. But now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to our actual DBQ and go through and start to construct an argument.